all of y'all can see what we're doing today. Is going to be selling your prints at a booth. I've been selling that for an artist that I work with for about 8 years, and then I've also been doing it on gallery at Art on Fifth, now AO5 in Austin, and the Choice Goods galleries here in San Antonio as well. And so selling at booths and stuff like that, I've done for a good while. Lauren Luna, who is a customer of FinerWorks, and I met in 2018 at the Bayou City Festival in Houston, and ran into her and started looking at her prints and found out she was our customer as well, and got to see her booth. She's going to kind of give us a little bit of her experience on here too. So we'll get ready to start. I just want to, I saw this great post today, and just to share this with you, this is from a local artist here, Mike Fisher, who does this, but he has
Yeah, that's
kind of,
why having them mute when they come in so we don't have so much background noises.
okay. Um, so if I mute you, that's why, guys. It's just because we're hearing the background or feedback. But this was really good. I like this. Just planning the plan of attack. Mike Fisher, I have known for probably about 8 years as well. I've seen him not only like at local art festivals here, like we have our is locally in San Antonio. We have First Friday and Second Saturday. I seen it First Friday at Brick here, which is like kind of the center hub of the art walk on First Friday. And but I've also, because I attend so many cons and I like going down artist alleys, I've seen Mike at a lot of them here in San Antonio and Dallas and stuff like that. So he has he always puts a lot into his booths as well, and I like the fact that this is it. And this is what I really want people to get used to now that we're doing a bunch of these in-person events again, is to go ahead and really think out your booth, so that y'all get the best most benefit from it, because I know sometimes when I first started, it was like to break even was good. And I just kind of thought of these more as promotion events. But having this information from people who've done this for years, Lauren, I believe, has been doing this 10 years already. And she is based in Houston. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we'll go ahead and let me go ahead and have my screen off until you're ready to show your booth pictures. All right, Lauren, go right ahead. Just go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. All right. So yes, as was previously said, I have been doing this about the entire length that I've been here in Houston. I moved here July 11th of 2011. And I purposely chose Houston because of its thriving art scene. There actually was an article that was printed today, or that came across my Facebook today from Travel and Leisure about how Houston was one of the top cities in the nation to go to for art. And that was is number one reason why I moved here, was because I wanted to be a professional artist. Straight out of college with my BFA, I moved to New York City and was like, yes, I'm going to be famous out there. But, got extremely distracted with everything else that was going on, just being 22 and in a big giant city. Then I moved back home for a short time, and then eventually here. Throughout all my research, I found out just what a thriving city Houston was when it came to just the art, the museum district, and all the numerous museums that are here, and Bayou City Arts Festival being one of the largest in Texas, and then just all the other pop-up shops that were around. And one name kept coming to me over and over and over again was the First Saturday Art Market, which actually was one of the very first markets that I worked at. When I first got here, all I had was artwork from undergrad, and I was a couple semesters in my master's program. So I had no collective body of work. I didn't have prints. I just had whatever it was that I did, in school. My first display was atrocious. I don't know if you have a picture of that, Melissa, or not.
I do. I don't think I thought it was pretty good. Here, let me go.
those flimsy easels, and things were blowing down, and it was just terrible. But being a novice, I don't know anything. Okay, this was not that show I'm speaking of. By that time, I had already purchased these walls. If you could back up. Yeah, the first one. This one was at Winter Street Studios, and I was still, almost all of this stuff is grad school work. And then I've also had a shoe line at the time, and I was manufacturing shoes. So it was a heavy push of the artwork that I was doing in school, as well as just with the shoe line that I had done. And then it's actually, all these pictures that Melissa has is a really good indication of just the evolution of my booth. So my living easel, if you can see the legs that are sticking out, that's my then 8-year-old son that was hiding underneath one of my paintings while he was playing his digital game of some sort. And I started with prints on canvas, and you can see those are over to the left. And just to try to create more of a price point, the small rectangular wire bin at the bottom is actually full of photographs that I'd taken in a photography class undergrad. Again, none of it really being cohesive. You can see the main piece right there is New Orleans. There's the Heights piece to the right. That's here in Houston. And then the New York pieces were all for my master's thesis. So none of it really goes together, other than the fact that I like to paint cities. So fast forward even more, I'm actually starting to create a more of a cohesive series and introducing the prints. That particular festival was probably one of my most successful festivals. That was White Linen Night here in Houston, and it's a giant street party, and they have the artists that come out there, and we set up our booths, and it's only from like 6 o'clock until maybe 10 o'clock, but it is jam-packed full of people. And there were so many people that were just picking up my little $45 prints, which is the one right there in the front, and then going to maybe the $50, $60 print towards the back, the larger ones. I literally had a line of people, and it was just amazing to me as an artist that all these people were in line to buy my art. I was just flabbergasted. And of course, I was excited because, hey, I'm making all this money, he had to pay to be there. So, I actually went above and beyond my expectations. People were buying originals, and I hadn't had that type of success until that day. I had spoken to an artist previously that had told me that unless she makes $2,000-$3,000 at a festival, she doesn't go back to those festivals. And I'm looking at her like, man, I'm lucky if I make $200 to $300. And so to have those kind of numbers that day, it was like, okay, so this is actually something that can happen. So then it moved on to not just prints on archival paper, then it moved on to prints on bags, prints on canvases and pillows. It was just stretching the imagination really, and lucrativity, if that's a word, of just trying to sell as much as I possibly could. And there were no limits. It was just, let me see how many things that I can get to move. And it was just about volume at that point, because volume equaled dollars. So, and now I have 2 different print sizes. So my prints range about $45 to, I actually have one that's $400, and that's a limited edition. But they're all pretty much in between, and they sell. This is my most recent upgrade. I finally invested in some pro panels, and if you're a festival artist, you know how much of a for real investment that is. So this was May, I think. And then the next to last picture, I believe, is from a show I did in Dallas. So now I actually have a print bin, and this was all set up inside. So it was nice to be inside, but yeah. That's the evolution of my booth, and how it went from, just, I don't have the super early one of the rickety easels that were blowing over, and it was just a disaster, to now having the pro panels and having the actual print bin, and having, a very price points so that somebody hopefully can find something that's within their price range.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, that's a beautiful setup you have there. And I am so averse to having spent a lot of time setting up and breaking down. I'm wondering, do you have a van or a larger vehicle to move all that material? I mean, it looks, like I said, it looks fantastic.
I drive a Dodge Durango. So
Okay.
I have the breakdown panel. So it's not just the one wall, they're in separate walls.
Yeah.
And so my whole like third row seating to trunk is all just festival stuff.
Mhm.
And then my second row is all paintings and whatnot. So I try to maintain within a certain size. I usually do 36 by 24 and then 18 by 24 so that they fit in that certain section of my car.
You mean that's the artwork that you limit yourself, the size you limit yourself to so you can transport it?
Generally,
That's
yes.
a very, very important practical tip. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like these ones behind me, that's 36 by 24, that's 18 by 24. That's actually a little larger. That would probably go into my studio as opposed to being one that would travel.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, we were just we had started the conversation with your post about your thing. Let me go ahead and I'll pop that back up just again one more time so people can take a look at that. This is Mike Fisher, also from San Antonio, who's joining us. And this is again, I love this post. It was such a great post for this week, that plan of attack, because really with your booth, you really do have to make a plan. And
It's a whole strategic thing you have to go through. It really is. And each event tends to be different, because for instance, in this event, Comic Palooza, you get your 10 by 10 space, you get the dividers, you get the curtain behind you, okay? And you see how I have the t-shirts up there high? I'm just hanging those on the bar that goes across that's holding up the curtain. And the t-shirts, of course, are light enough that they won't cause any problem. But other venues, like I was just at this Monsterama market, I was in front of a stage, but there were, the stage was like knee high and there wasn't anything behind me. And so, you have to sort of adapt, at least I have to sort of adapt my setup to the locale, because I don't have like a prearranged, I know a lot of people have prearranged panels, prearranged projector screen type things they can pull up and set up behind them. I tend to just sort of work with whatever is at the venue.
yeah, and then sometimes depending on the show you're at, you are kind of limited. Sometimes you can't bring your own walls in your tent, and you are limited. Like you're saying, a background curtain, divider walls, and a table.
And that's one reason, that's one reason I like First Friday at the Brick, because I've been going there for years. I have a spot in front of a wall. They do not mind if you put thumbtacks in the wall, and they paint over it every now and then. And it's just so nice to have a huge wall behind you. You can do whatever you want with it,
Yeah, because you can go up at the Brick, which is really nice. Okay, we got a question here.
So, you want to mute? Mike, can you mute yourself? Because we're in the same room. Or should I give you the question, then maybe you can ask it?
Well, yeah, it's just my, there.
Okay. All right. So Lauren, and maybe Mike can chime in afterwards as well, because obviously both of y'all have some, I'm sure, good experiences to share. What I'm interested in, and what I think some other people appear to be, is getting set up. It seems to be a little bit of work, and obviously you're not just selling your artwork, you're selling your time. And so what is the, tell us about the Lauren, if you can, and again, Mike, maybe after Lauren, you can also tell us what is the process like? Are you getting up early in the morning, and how much time are you spending setting up? And obviously you have to, and we just talked about it, transporting the artwork, but the whole setup process, and from start to end, where afterward you're like, because I can somewhat relate having years ago. I had a wedding videography company, and I remember going to these bridal shows and just the stress and the work of getting your booth set up and all that. But the end results was, while it was a lot of work, it was very rewarding because of the people you got to meet and so forth. But anyway, Lauren, if you could share some of that, and maybe Mike, if tell us some of your experiences after Lauren, if you could.
Well, it's been a total trial and error, just from day one. As I said, with my first initial booth, just starting with those rickety easels, and then moving to pegboards, then moving to a mesh wall, and now moving to the pro panels. It's been a learning process across the board, because it's not just your artwork that you're bringing. You have to bring, in the case of the pro panels, you have to bring the pro panels, you have to bring the hardware for that, you have to bring your prints. This is Texas, so you need fans. Hopefully there's some electricity, so you need to bring your lights. I have a box that's like, I call it my catch-all box. Now it has chamois for if it rains and I got to wipe stuff down. I learned that last month. I have zip ties in there. I have credit card, the Square credit cards. I have business cards. It's just a catch-all. I have hammer, nails, it's just everything that's in there. And then you need your chairs and a cooler if you want to have, some water while you're there, because not every festival or event will offer it for you. So it's literally putting all of those Tetris skills that we learned when we were kids to use. My Durango is a three-seater, and my back seat has captain's chairs. So when they fold flat, I actually have a space right there, and in that space go my sandbags. So then on top of those sandbags start going the 24 by 36 canvases. And then usually there's enough room over on the other side going this way is the 18 by 24s. And that's my second row. And then maybe I might have something that can slide in, behind the driver and passenger seat. Everything else beyond that is everything that I need just for a setup. Did I answer your question? I think I got side railed.
Like all the time that goes into this is a lot. Like, like you were, I think you were talking about, like, just preparing your prints to be presentable for sale. Because I know a lot of artists, they order 25 prints of each image, and then they sleeve them themselves. We actually do offer sleeving, and you can do the presentation mats here, which is a little bit of a time saver for some artists. They've gone to that, where it's presentation mat because it's already sleeved, and they have those available. Just to take that 2 to 3 hours, I think you said it took you to go ahead and hand cut everything. I've seen your Instagram post with you actually doing this. I'm like, watch those digits, girl, because
oh, I've filleted one of my fingers before, so yeah, for sure. I just find it.
What would you say your overall time investment is per show, from preparing to, I guess, shows can be anywhere from like you said, 4 hours to all day or weekend events?
That is not an easy answer. Well, the majority of my art is kept at my studio, which is 20 minutes away from me. So I have to go there, take it all down, put it in my car, come back to my house, then load up everything else, like, the showing part of it. And that is maybe an hour right there. And then my setup time takes about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Breakdowns usually a little faster. But I've learned, like, again, trial and error. I've learned different things that kind of speed the process up a little bit more. But every time I set up and tear down, it's always a learning experience to just figure out how to do it more quickly and more efficiently.
And Mike, you find the same thing? I know, you do First Fridays here, and then you have cons. What would you say your time investment is on doing your shows?
Well, not counting creating the art, of course, but just like for First Friday, it just takes me maybe 20 minutes to bring everything in, and I can have everything set up in maybe 45 minutes, and I can break it down, in 45 minutes or 30 minutes as well. Um, Boy, I really admire Lauren's can-do attitude with the outdoor shows and packing up the sandbags and all that, because I'm one of those who I tend to avoid outdoor shows, although I know those can be the biggest, best shows. But with the tents, the sandbags, the panels, maybe I'm lazy. I don't know, but I tend to avoid those and try to find indoor shows. I can appreciate you talking about filling up your vehicle just exactly so, Lauren, because I do the same thing. My car is packed, and I remember one time I have a friend, and the early days we used to maybe go to shows together and set our stuff up on tables together. But then a couple of years ago, he said, "Hey, Mike, hey man, if I come to that show and visit you, can I have like a couple of feet on the end of your table?" And I had to say, "Keith, man, no, you can't, because every square inch is occupied.
Right.
It's all decided. So it is more of a plan now, just like the little diagram you showed that I drew. Yeah, I try and plan it out, and I felt like a bad friend, but I think he understood.
Yeah.
And also, I also have a catch-all box. It's got the business cards. It's got the
Yep.
pair of scissors and tape that other vendors are always wanting to borrow.
Yep.
It's got Pop-Tarts, all that kind of stuff that you really need. Handy white things,
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, the big catch-all box is very important.
Oh yeah, for sure. And every time you do a show, you find out one more thing that you
That's
need
right.
to put into it. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you guys go? Lauren, you had mentioned how you got great advice from another artist when you said, they want to make $2,000 to $3,000 a show, or they don't go back to that show. So how do you guys decide what events you're going to do? Do you all doing this by word of mouth from other artists on what to expect in sales? Or are y'all getting information from events on what the sales can be? How do you select?
So I learned what my demographic was just by taking the inventory of who was doing the majority of the purchasing of originals. My originals are not cheap. So I need to make sure that if I'm going to take all my time to do all of this, to load up the car and prep everything else, that I'm going to be making some money. Granted, it's not always going to happen. And that's the gamble that we take as artists. But I know that I don't do well in suburbs. I found that out through experience. I found out that I don't do I think you had given an example of the pancakes and booze show. That's not my demographic. They don't spend what I charge. So I need, for personally, I do Houston cityscapes. So I connect more with the urban city dwellers that are 30 and above, maybe first-time homeowners, maybe even parents who are buying it for their children, college educated, maybe upper, almost into the 6-digit salary range. That's my demographic, and those are the people that I'm targeting. The suburbians, they are removed from that city, inner city, for a reason, and usually it's because of kids, or it's because they want the school systems, or they're just tired of city life. And I've had one of my highest, most reproduced paintings that I do is of the Be Someone Bridge here in Houston. It was a train bridge that said Be Someone, and then directly behind it was the Houston skyline. One of the most popular paintings I've done. I had a woman in my booth the other day, and sometime recently, and she was like, "Yeah, I wish that wasn't there. I like this so much better if it didn't have that." And so she would be one of those people that I would equate with the suburban people that don't really want that inner city grit, if you will. So.
And Mike, how do you decide? Because you go to a lot of cons. So
Well,
you've done traveling outside of the city and gone to other places, right?
I have a few regular cons, but I tell you, my threshold for shows that I'm willing to attend and go to and spend money on hotel rooms and stuff has really gotten much higher, because when you have the hotel room in particular, all the costs just add up, and in order to make a buck, you really have to have stratospheric sales. So Comic Palooza I go to, and I'll probably go to that one no matter what, from now until I can't anymore, because it's so much fun. But it's pretty much always very well attended. The last year they didn't have it because of COVID, but before that, that was my first not so good show, but only because that weekend had a ton of flooding, and I think people couldn't actually make it to downtown. But other shows, like I just went to a Kerrville show. That was fine. It was just an hour and 50-minute drive. I tend to stay in Central Texas. I'm not even willing to go to Dallas because the cost of the hotel rooms there and the cost of the shows also tend to be greater. But if you look, there are a lot of nice local shows that are not going to charge you $350 or $400 right off the bat for a table. That where I do well on that, that can be my demographic, maybe the smaller shows. And
I just did a show in Dallas about a month ago, and it was my first one outside of Houston, since I'd moved to Houston, and I don't know if I would do it again.
Yeah.
I managed to sell 2 originals, but I didn't see the offset of the trip, 4.5 hours. Then I bought the print bin from FinerWorks specifically for that show. The hotel stay, food every night, the trip back. It really didn't, you know?
And at the end of the weekend, when you're sitting there thinking, okay, what could I have done with these 48 hours that could have been potentially more benefit,
right?
As
opposed to just sitting there watching people go by with the fake smile on yourself. Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? Yeah.
So I've gotten very, very careful about committing to shows like that.
What is y'all's budget? I mean, there's people who will only do, and they're very few and frequent free shows, but for your space, what kind of budget do y'all look at? And I mean, like when y'all first started doing, what was the budget you would, and now what is the budget you do for a space at a show? Lauren, you can start.
Well, again, it depends on the demographic that's going to attend. I did a chocolate and art show real early on, and it was $10, I think, a piece to enter. And it turned out to be a horrific show, just echoing music throughout the entire venue. It was so loud. It was people that didn't care about the art. They were just, there for the socialization. And they were more about, just being there to be seen, essentially, because there's a whole bunch of Instagram things, and it just made me so angry because, and I really don't like when people take pictures of my art. I know that's a touchy subject with a lot of artists, but because of the fact that I sell prints, I have to explain to people, like, you can't take pictures of my art. So, but budget, back on track, sorry. I know more or less the larger shows that are going to generate more income are going to be more expensive. Like Bayou City is $500, whether it be the 3-day show or the 2-day show. But that's also an easy $7,000 to $8,000 generated, even more. One of my neighbors one year, she completely sold out of her art. I don't know what her price point was, but I was like, why can't that be me? But, the smaller shows are usually going to be less, maybe 75, 85 to 100. And again, you just kind of have to weigh, okay, who are you targeting? Who is your target that you are trying to get to come to the show? Is that my demographic? If it's not, I'm not going.
And Mike, what about you? What have you kind of gauged budget wise for shows? And again, when you do travel, I guess you have to consider that as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I think Lauren nailed it. It really depends on the demographic. I mean, the bigger shows generally draw more people. That's not always the case, but usually. But then, I think there's also some usefulness in going to shows that are perhaps a mystery. I try not to go to first year shows because I've had really bad experience with a lot of first year shows just because they're unorganized, and it's not really I don't want to blame the organizers. It's just the nature of a first year show. There's just lots of uncertainties, and I try not to get caught up in that. But sometimes a first year show sounds cool, and I try it anyway. And also I'll try shows that I'm not quite sure about. But there is some usefulness in getting out there, and you might meet one person at a show. The show might not be so great, but you might meet one person at a show that tells you about another show you had no idea about, and that show turns out to be great. So getting out there is something that I think you need to do every once in a while. I went to a show. It was earlier this year, I think it was, and it was Pistons and Pinups. And there was a hot rod, a guy who worked on hot rods and customized cars, and he was having a bunch of pinup models there on his location. And I thought, well, I've never done anything like this. Usually it's a comic book type thing, but let me go. And it was a great show. It was, it worked really, really well. The people there liked my stuff. And I was very happy I took that chance. Although as I get older, I take fewer and fewer chances because I sort of have a good sense of what, will and will not work and what could possibly work. But early on, I was a lot more cavalier about what, there's a picture right there. Yeah. See, did you see it was yeah, but there was a picture. If you can go back, I actually had a table underneath a card that was up on, the repair bay right there. There you go. Check it out, man. The car did not fall on me. It was a fun show. You can see the wind was blowing, but it was cool, man. Everybody seemed to like the stuff, and that was a good chance that I took.
Yeah, I think locally, I think we've always reached out to you whenever we have hot rod shows and car classic shows, because your kind of take on the pinup and the classic comic, it just appeals to that group. Again, knowing your demographic.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've seen that work really well for you as well. What about hiring help, guys? I mean, how I know I've worked for local artist Tatum for about 7 years. So I'm hired help, even though we call each other family. He makes sure to pay me. But as an assistant working for an artist, I find that when I do this, I do a little bit better on not going back and saying, hey, yeah, let me make you this deal. I'm like, these are my show prices. After the show, they will be higher. Where artists tend to try to make, I think, deals to get it sold and stuff, and do a little more backpedaling, especially when it comes to originals. But you all hire help. How do you handle? Because I know shows, like you were saying, bathroom breaks, eating something, just that little break that you need to take care of stuff. Do you guys hire help, or have y'all, indentured servants called children? How does that work for you guys?
That part.
You go.
Yeah. So when I moved here, my son was 8. He is now 18. So from the age of 8 until he was employed at like 17, he was my indentured servant. He had no choice. He was there. And there was a whole lot of me fussing at him, like, you don't know how to do this. Why don't you know how to do this? We've been doing this every single month for the past 8 years. And, that's probably why he was excited to get a real job and, not have to work with me anymore. But most festivals that I've attended have help. Like Bayou City has a bazillion volunteers that walk around and either passing out water or snacks, or even if you have a bathroom break, they'll come and check on you. And sometimes it's almost excessive. You're like, okay, no, I just told that person that's just now leaving my booth, no, I don't need any help. But then here comes another. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I would appreciate that as opposed to nothing, and you're just kind of sitting there, doing the pee-pee dance because you can't go to the restroom and you don't have anybody that can help you out. But a lot of times artists understand that that's part of it, so they're willing to say, hey, I'll be right back, I got to go to the restroom, and they'll keep an eye on your booth. But it's definitely about the rapport that you gain also with your neighbors. Because I mean, I've seen people say, I'll be right back, and the person that they said, can you keep an eye on my booth, is just like, whatever, and you're trusting this person to watch your booth. But, so like I said, go ahead.
Yeah, so family and friends have kind of been your support staff at the booth.
Definitely.
Right. And then people that are, that are there. The
Yeah.
one that I do monthly, he hires local youngsters that come and help us set up. And they just kind of wander around and, do you need some help? And then we tip them with, that's their payment. So
Oh, that's a good setup. That's something a lot of art shows should probably look at. Maybe the Brick should look at that too here.
yeah.
Mike, what about you? What do you use as your booth support?
Well, I do rely on the kindness of strangers and fellow vendors. Occasionally, my wife will come with me to a show, and that's great because she'll help out. Now, it's not so great when it's a bad weekend and we're both sitting there looking at each other, and I know she's thinking, "You could be home right now repairing the deck," and there's no one in front of the table. So that's when it's not so good. But no, it's great when she's able to come and help. And but generally, I try to. I end up taking care of myself and asking vendors to help out, or if you can pick a spot and close to the men's room, so then it's not so much of a break when you have to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. We had one question here on what you guys, which I have also. How do you decide what inventory to have there? Patty, who's watching here on Zoom, was asking. She has not. She's kind of been reluctant to start with a large inventory. So, what have been good quantities to start with for your prints and note card kind of stuff? Your small prints to your large prints, and I'll let Lauren start there with what you started with and to what you have now.
I started with just smaller sizes, like 11 by 14. Those were like the least price point. And at first I just kind of made prints of everything that I had. So inclusive of the stuff that I had for my MFA with the New York stuff to the handful of Houston paintings that I had. And then over time, I noticed I started keeping better inventory of what was selling and what I still have. Like even with that first initial order, I even still have prints that are from that very first order back in 2014, 15, whatever year it was. Obviously, that wouldn't be something that I'm going to reorder because I still have it, but things that I constantly flow through, I try to do an inventory count right before every show. That doesn't always happen, but at least the big shows, I do an inventory count. And I just have it on a Google Doc. And that way I can just check and see how many I have of each. And I'll put stars next to the ones that I'm not going to order anymore. So that helps just keep an inventory.
In retrospect, doing your first show, how would you have done your first show to pick which ones? I mean, what would you base things off when it's your first time out there? Do you go by popularity of a social post of an image and saying, wow, this one's just, I know for me, ordering some prints and deciding to make prints is the popularity of social posts. When I see something get like 200, likes within an hour or something, I'm like, okay, we got to move on this, make some prints.
Right.
And have the next show. Is
right.
that how you kind of gauge at it if you're first
Oh,
time
absolutely.
out?
Absolutely. Because the same people that are commenting and liking your posts, that's the same general public that could potentially be buying your prints.
So how many would you say if you're going to I want to say maybe a weekend show, because I want to say a lot of our budding artists start at the weekend shows. What kind of like quantities would you say? 25 a print or less than that, 5 a print?
Yeah, I stick to 5. I don't usually sell more than 5, but I also have a lot of a variety to choose from. But that's my safe number.
Yeah.
And it also keeps me within the same budget too when I'm ordering.
Yeah. And Mike, would you agree with that number?
I think so. Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I say I have a whole bunch of prints, and I've gotten to the point where I say, wow, my vast selection of prints has become quite a problem because you got to keep them up, and then you can't find them exactly just as fast as you'd like to find them. But yeah, 5, 6, 7. Although it depends, like again, on where you're going. Like this Monsterama market I went to recently, of course, I found all the horror Frankenstein monster, Bride of Frankenstein types of imagery that I had and made sure I had those on display. But then the Kerrville show just recently, my wife, she said, hey, make sure you take some of those sci-fi cowboy drawings that you made. Oh yeah, good point. And so I made sure those were on display in Kerrville out in the hill country. And sure enough, they were very well received, the cowboy imagery. So yeah, you can do a little bit of predicting about, the clientele that will be walking past your table, I think.
Yeah. And Patty, and I think for your first time out, like they said, having those kind of quantities, especially if you're going to do a weekend kind of market kind of show. But the great thing is we also have drop shipping at FinerWorks. And I have used that with Tatum saying, because I'm out of that print. But how would you like to go ahead and purchase it right now? And I'll have it mailed to your house. You don't even have to worry about carrying it around the show.
Mhm.
I just pull out the square, order it. I get their information. I actually write there and then put the order in. So I make sure I have something that tells me it's going out, and I'll send them really quick an invoice from Square and say, okay, your print is going to be on its way. So that to me has always been a great thing. So I don't ever really worry too much with the quantity. I know for us, I pack about 25 a show, but we already have a lot of inventory set up. So I'll bring about 25 a print out to stuff. Um, we try so many different shows. That's why Tatum has been more experimental in his shows. And sometimes we don't know what's going to work, what isn't going to work, but I have enough of it usually there. I usually have to bring everything back and pack it in. Oh, and I did get Lauren, while I have this here, let me go ahead and share that quick view of your car, of your Tetris skills here, because, this is something everybody can appreciate.
So
The
this
email-
this large plastic container thing at the bottom is actually full of prints. So I was trying to think of the easiest way that I could take a large quantity of prints, because before they were just in a plastic tote and in a box, and it was too cumbersome. And so now I have this giant roadie plastic thing, which isn't any less cumbersome. So I don't bring that. It stays in my studio too.
Side view there.
Yeah, and this is those painting, or the pro panels are actually like hovering above the paintings. They're not actually on the paintings, but those are the 24 by 36s right there. And then slid up against behind the driver's seat is my director's chair. And you can see my catch-all box towards the back.
Yeah, right there.
So that's what my car looks like. What you can't see are the sandbags that are underneath it. And then can you back the first picture?
Sure. Let me get back in there.
So on the right-hand side, the thing with that is my tent. On top of that is my rug. To the inside of that is my sign that goes up over my tent. And so that's all that stuff that's hidden in there. And then, and I've already explained all the other things. You can see the old print racks that are on top now. This was before I bought the Pro Panel print rack, which now sits on top. And actually I bought like 2 more panels from Pro Panels as well. So my car is packed.
Yeah. And let me see. I know when you guys go to now setting up and everything on there, Patty was mentioning getting their emails and stuff, which we do when you're making your drop shipping thing, you get the customer's email. But do y'all use your booth as a promotion time when to go ahead and start catching emails for potential buyers? There's sometimes I've gone to booths where they're not doing that. And I always think, man, the first thing you should do is be catching everybody's email that's coming through here. Especially if you plan to do the show again, if it's an annual show, tapping those people is so great, and having their emails. So how do y'all capture emails, or do you even do that?
I have a clipboard that's on the side of one of my panels that say join our email blast, and that's about it. What I have noticed though is that people don't necessarily look. You send an email, like right now I currently have 233. I only know that because I just sent it out today. but maybe 40 of those people will actually open up the emails. And considering it was all on them to sign up for it, well, why did you sign up if you don't really want the email? You know, nobody forced you to do this. But what I have found to be super successful is I have this dot on the back of my phone, and evidently if you tap somebody else's phone, it gives all of your information, so they can go directly to your information. So my Venmo, Instagram, Facebook, etc., is all popped up when it works. So in that aspect, they can always get to me faster necessarily than I can get to them.
Yeah. The only great thing about having the emails is you own that. So like your Instagram, for instance, and I've known about a lot of artists who've reached out to me to say, my Instagram has been hijacked. How do I get it back? So my Facebook, when you lose, especially when you've gained like 5,000 plus followers, and to go do that work all over again.
Right.
The one thing that's great about the email blast is, you know, you actually own that contact directly to your customers. So that's here. Let me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention something about the email. Is with the email, it is and I just know this from over the years of dealing with email marketing, is it becomes a numbers game. So I think with artists that are participating at booths, that it is still a good practice. Email marketing is not as effective as it once was, but I think Lauren's statement about getting maybe about 40 out of the 200 something odd is actually pretty good percentage wise nowadays. So a lot of 10 to 20%. I've heard numbers say, oh, it should be higher, but most people that I talk to that are engaged in some sort of email marketing, that 10 to 20% range seems to be kind of about average from what I'm seeing. So that's actually not bad. But it's really about getting the overall quantity. So let's say that out of that 10 to, or out of that, let's say you have 100 people on your list, and you get 10 to open and then 1 to buy. Okay, every email is 100th of a sale. So you try to accumulate groups of hundreds of, an email group of 100. So that's what you aspire to. And so you try to kind of look at it not so much as the and I think artists don't look at it this way, and so they don't put enough stock in that email list, but looking at it as that cumulative number. And I think while it takes a while to get those numbers, the end results would be good. But I definitely get what you're saying, Laura, because it's almost discouraging. You feel like you're wasting time. But I will say this, that eventually it does pay dividends. So I did want to just kind of mention that, so.
Yeah. Again, having for me, I even go in and add not only the email, but their zip code, because sometimes, again, if you're doing traveling shows, it's great to have just that group to send a targeted email out to, like, coming back to the Pasadena area, and I'm able to get just that area of people, knowing that they're more likely to come, and seeing something about their area makes them feel like it's a little more personal, so they're more likely to open those emails for shows. So sometimes I'll put, coming, like I said, coming to Pasadena or happening in Pasadena, and then the artist name, because that actually gets more opens when I do it that targeted. Let me see, I have some more questions here for you guys. So we already talked about your inventory. Lauren, for you, what media, I noticed you said you had a whole, but you started with canvas prints. What media are you using for your prints?
Archival matte paper.
I have my paper. And Mike, you have, is it more like a poster papers or?
It's a digital print, 13 by 19 inches. And I know a lot of people prefer to deal with the 11 by 17 because it's just a little smaller, easier to deal with, but I like to get the image as large as possible for the customer,
Mhm.
just because I feel like they might like that.
Yeah, there's some of your huge works I really, really love. I think the first one I ever saw was a really big print that you had. I think it might have been poster paper framed
Mhm.
up in Halcyon here in San
Oh,
Antonio.
yeah, yeah. That's where I had a
That's
bunch of stuff.
my favorite print, and I actually have a lot of your prints over the years. I've collected quite a bit. Um,
Can I
so
mention something about, you're talking about emails and addresses and that sort of thing, zip codes and all that. One thing I did, and honestly, I don't know how effective it is, but it's fun when I do it, is I did ask people on my Instagram. I tend to rely on Instagram. I said, send me your mailing address and I will be happy to send you a free, I call it the Pony Express. And I just left to try and find a copy of it. I couldn't find it, but the Pony Express is very much like this. It's just a very small little comic book type thing that has news and images that I don't post on Instagram. And I mail it. I actually mail it directly to folks. And, mailed things these days, it's very unusual. And so, I've sent 3 of them out in the last probably 9 months. And they always tend to get a good reaction because it's so unusual these days to get something like that.
is it like this?
And this is something else. This is another thing I prepared for Comic Palooza, which is not this weekend, but next weekend. It's the same size as the comic book I was just talking to you about. But it's what I'm going to do with this is take it to the show and hand it to the vendors that are there who deal in original art, original comic art, because I'm going to have many originals there. And so probably Friday after I get set up, I'll probably walk around, identify the vendors who are interested or selling original art, and just hand them one of these comic books, along with, of course, the 3D glasses, because the center spread is a 3D image. But I'll hand them this and say, "Hey, man, I'm table 1826 over in Artist Alley. I've got some original art. If you want to come by and take a look, that'd be great. And here are some examples you can look at in the meantime." So it's a little comic book that hopefully will generate a little bit of interest in the table.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a really good idea.
Speaking about stuff that was mailed, I recently did twice a snail mail campaign of postcards. Basically, I did it all within the zip code of where my studio is, because where I have my studio is actually one of the largest artist compounds in the nation. And so they've been advertising the mess out of that. And every second Saturday, they have all this open studios, and it's a big to-do, and people come out. And so I'm trying to gain some more interest in specifically my studio. So I sent out these emails, or I'm sorry, snail mail postcards. This is who I am. This is what I do. Come see me. And I'm waiting to see if that's going to actually work. It's gone out twice. I haven't seen physically anything, but I did go to Dallas one of those weeks, or one of those months. So I don't know yet. And I actually want to send it one more time, and then maybe even put like a discount code on it. That way I know specifically that those things that I mailed out are actually working. So I'm with you on the mailing stuff.
Yeah, actually, for our art gallery, we would do a physical mailer for some of our higher end shows, and we would do that based on customers and what they bought, because we saw original art. So sometimes if we have someone coming in with art that's $650,000, we're kind of looking at our people who've bought, Andy Warhols, who've come in and bought original art, or who are really, just in the art community there in Austin. And we actually will go ahead and target some of our high-end art buyers in Houston, surrounding areas, San Antonio. So yeah, we do see more of a return on the physical mailer than, like I said, the email part is branding, a lot of that.
Mhm.
Uh, while we're on this topic, guys, of it, how far in advance do y'all start promoting your booths? And because I know some of you, like Lauren, is like every weekend doing something, and Mike, I know you have First Friday, you have big shows you come up. So I feel like you're always doing something every weekend as well. We'll start with Lauren. How far in advance do you start promoting for shows, or when you have a schedule like?
So yeah, because I do it every single weekend, I usually can only do them weekly, because if I bombard people with too much information, they're just going to get confused. Like, for example, second Saturdays at the artist compound that I was telling you about is this upcoming Saturday. It also coincides with the proclamation of Lauren Luna Day that the city gave me. So I'm trying to build it up to this big to do. And I've been advertising that for about 2 weeks, since it hit July 1st. And somebody went to my studio on Sunday, the 4th of July, and sent me a picture and said, I was here.
Mhm.
And I said, but the flyer says July 10th.
Mhm.
So why are you there? But that's a whole nother topic of people not reading. But, I try to make sure that I give, especially with the big events, like I'll do all my events that I have for July. I've already posted, this is what's happening for July. But then by week basis, I'm only doing whatever's happening that week. So if you scroll, do you have my Instagram pulled up?
Instagram. Let me go ahead and share that.
I do a very similar thing to what Lauren's describing. Yeah.
When you have so many events, you have to do them sequentially, or just people will get confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are very busy.
Yeah.
Here's Luna Day.
So you can see very clearly at the bottom, it says July 10th, but that didn't stop that person from showing up at my studio on the 4th. I think I posted like at the end of June, just what was going on for July. Yeah, it's probably right there where the first Saturday art market is.
Did I pass it or right
Right.
here?
Oh, go up. Go back up. Oh, maybe it's that one. I don't know. It's one of these ones that say first Saturday art market.
Let's see. Yeah, you got that first Saturday art market at night, and you have, okay, July 3rd.
And that got postponed because the daggone rain.
Yeah, that flooding. That's the hard thing about outdoor things too. Even when they're indoors, sometimes, I think here at the Brick, even
Tried that one.
come
I'm sorry.
coming on Sundays, Cowboys games. So if you're
Yeah.
during that noon to 3, or if it's 3 o'clock game, sometimes that kind of cuts into sales also. Yeah,
Okay. Keep going down. It's got to be one of the first Saturday. Try that one. Nope. Okay. I don't know. Sorry. I mean, that's how often I have to post. So,
Like
oh,
I
there you
said,
go. There you go. So those are, just keep hitting that arrow, because that they're all in order. That's the 26th. Oh no, I lied. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry.
I don't know if like I said, I mean, you do a lot of posting on the stuff you're doing, and like I said, you're very busy. So that's why I appreciate you doing this. When y'all are, what about you, Mike? How far do you find yourself advertising? I mean, especially when you're doing a physical mailer like you're doing.
Well, like Lauren, I'll advertise shows the week of, because if you bombard people with too much info, then they will get confused. Although with Comic Palooza and a few other shows, I will put a few extra advertisements in the weeks leading up to that show, because this Comic Palooza, I think everyone attending feels like it's a big deal, because there was no show last year. They originally had the show scheduled this year in, I think, May, then rescheduled it to July. So it's been a while, and I think people are excited for it, and I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be fun. And so I'll advertise a show like that more than once, weeks in advance. But
Mhm.
usually just the week of the show is when I will put something on Instagram.
Are y'all finding that there are better times of years to do these shows? I mean, Christmas, fourth quarter, thing, but is there one? I mean, summer has local here print wise. Come spring, we see the orders go up because everybody's getting ready to do different shows. But for you guys, have y'all seen a better time of year for selling, especially when you're doing it
Yes.
every weekend? Like Lauren, go ahead and.
Well, okay, so this is new with doing it every single weekend. It used to just be First Saturday Art Market and then Bayou City Arts Festival twice a year. So I would still call, sometimes I might have a third festival, that off the beaten path or something, but that, again, that was part of the, the trial and error. But still spring and fall, because this is Texas, are always going to be the prime festival times because the weather is generally okay. Never mind Harvey and all the other plights that Houston has seen. Yeah, and then Harvey was a whole nother ballgame because then the year before that we had all kinds of flooding too in the spring, so most of the art festivals got canceled then too. So generally, it's spring and fall.
And Mike?
Well, since I tend to gravitate towards the indoor shows, I don't really notice as much seasonal sort of change, I guess. So yeah, I got a good show in January or March or August or December.
I find January to be very slow.
You find it slow?
That's true. I mean, if I had to say, yeah, you're right. I guess January, probably, particularly first couple weeks in January. Yeah, that would probably be the slowest part of the whole year, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, blown everything at Christmas and no extra funds.
Mm-hmm.
And
then February starts the tax returns start to kick in, and then everything, then festival season kicks in, and so.
Well, let's talk about your app booth sales. So here we are. We've seen all of the stuff you guys have to do. How does your display affect your sales, Lauren?
Well, because I know my artwork is of a higher price point, I try to make sure that everything falls in line with that aesthetic. I can't have my flimsy easels and try to charge you $1,200 for this painting. As my price point has risen, so has my booth and the aesthetic of how it looks. Just because I can't expect somebody to come in and plunk down, a good amount of change when it just looks like, trash. So I've spent a lot of money making my booth look presentable and to the level of that it should be attracting my client.
Yeah, the mini gallery, which I like with your pro walls.
Exactly.
Now, Mike, different clientele because I've seen a lot of stuff during like artist alleys, like you're saying at some. But do you see like, the way you have that plan of attack for your booth? How does presentation affect your sales, or does it? Like,
yeah, I just try to show people as visually have it up and forward as much as possible so they can see, because just like I said earlier that I have so many prints, it has become quite a problem, quite an issue because I have so many. I also have so many different things going on, and I often think I should just pick one and go with it, but I can't because I have the T-shirts, I have the prints, I have fake out comic books, which are self-published things. I won't go into that. I have self-published comic books. I have original art. I now have the 3D prints, and so it can be kind of overwhelming. And I think that's probably maybe a negative in some ways, but I like to show it all because, someone might be attracted to the 3D print, but not the fake out comic books, or they might like that original art, but not the Star Babe Invasion comics. So I try to get everything just visually up where everyone can see it as much as possible without having to spend a whole bunch of time getting it set up. So I'm trying to find the easiest way to show as much as possible.
That's always the key.
So yeah, so that when 6 p.m. rolls around, I don't think I got to be here 3 more hours to put this all back.
Right.
I can start packing it up and get out pretty quick, which
Yeah.
isn't maybe the best business strategy if you're really trying to make a huge, nice presentation for sales. I'm about getting in and getting out, you know.
Well,
Mike?
you know, that's at the end of every festival. Everybody's like, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, right. And sometimes they're looking at their watches like around 2 or 3 p.m. You know?
Right.
We got a question for Mike. James has got, so I'm going to go ahead and myself really quick and
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I'm curious. With such a variety of items, and I don't know if Lauren, if you have the same issue or not.
I do.
But do you find that your products potentially compete with themselves? So let's say if you have a print, but you also have a T-shirt,
Yeah.
might someone buy, maybe your margins are greater on the print than on the T-shirt, or vice versa, depending upon what you're selling. Have you ever run into that issue and had to think, well, maybe I shouldn't have certain products that and maybe you no longer carry those because of that? Do you
Yeah,
get what I'm
I have
saying?
thought that, and I've often thought, I haven't done this yet, but I've often thought that maybe I should get one table for T-shirts and prints, and then a whole nother, just buy a separate table for original art. Because I think that might be easier on the person walking by. They won't just look at my table and think, what is going on here? It'll be easier for them to, categorize what it is that they're seeing at each table. I haven't done that yet because that means a bigger investment up front. But yeah, you could easily make an argument that I should be doing that, I think.
and you, Lauren?
So I carry all the things that Mike had said, but the large majority of that stuff I sell online. I don't actually keep it with me. So my T-shirts and pillows and shower curtains and everything else that this particular drop ship site sells is sold online. I have a very small inventory that I keep in my studio. The majority of what I sell is originals because that has the highest price point, and the prints. So that will address people maybe that can't afford the original and they want to go more for the print, and that's fine with me too, because if you sell enough $60 prints, it'll still equal that $1,200 painting. And that's what I found very quickly when I did the Bayou City Arts Festivals. Of course, I call it the artist walk of shame. And Mike, I'm pretty sure that you can relate to this. When you've left this festival that you've been at for however many days with the exact number of originals that you walked in there with.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the artist walk of shame.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens to everybody, but you just have to chin up and just keep it moving.
Well, sometimes, you can just remove one off the wall early Sunday and put it in your car, and no one knows you did that, and they'll think, oh, that one, someone was there that sold. Oh, look
right.
at that.
Oh, let me ask you this. Have you noticed that whatever your setup is, let's say it's a 2-day show, whatever your setup is on Saturday, if you switch stuff around on Sunday, you end up selling something that was there the entire time?
Yes, I think
somebody that's already walked by.
Yeah, the strategy, the little sketch I did, the strategy can continue right down to, do you put this print on the left or the right?
Yeah.
It could be that minute, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Dallas show that I went to just recently, Saturday was the complete and utter bust. My cheeks hurt from the fake smile all day long, and I was just like, I got to know my neighbor extremely well. He didn't know how to work his square, so I helped him learn that. But then the very next day, I moved some stuff around, played musical chairs with my paintings, and sold 3. And I was just like, hallelujah, made my trip worthwhile. But, again, won't do it again. But it's weird how just switching stuff around sometimes can make all the difference. And sometimes I'll do that even on a 1-day show midway through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. And again, display affecting sales. It's your thing that comes in, and I don't know if there's a science really to it.
No.
I try to put.
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
At the Brick Marketplace just the other night, actually two First Fridays ago, I have my table there against the wall, and there's across the aisle is a guy who had set up, and his table wasn't facing the door, but the end of his table was facing the door where everyone walks in, okay? The end of his table was facing the door. And he put a bunch of stuff on the front of his table, but he didn't put anything on the side of the table. And I almost, I wanted to say, hey, friend, look, you know what? This side is facing the door. In this arrangement at this show and where your table's located, you should put your best stuff right on the end of this table. But I didn't say anything, and I felt bad about it. Then the first Friday, same situation, but with a different person. And I thought, this time I'm going to say something. And so I went over and I said, hey, you know what? Everyone's entering from right here. If you use this little stand right here, you can put your stuff here and they see it as soon as they walk in. And you know what she said? Thank you for mentioning that. So I probably should have mentioned it to the guy first time around.
That's a good tip right there for everybody who's watching.
That's about adapting to the space that you are given,
Oh, absolutely.
Display does affect sales. Now, what have you guys taken to go? What have y'all found works for you guys as far as taking in payment? The Square, cash only. I know Lauren mentioned, no checks. I think all of us who have sold art know that. None of us accept. But what has been the easiest payment form? What do you call payment? I guess point of sale to take with. Payment collection. Payment collection. That's the word I'm looking for. Payment collection method. Lauren, we'll start with you.
I've been using Square since it was a thing. So I stick with that. I recently just did a show and I used my new business Venmo. I have a Google Voice number. Venmo doesn't accept Google Voice numbers. So as I'm giving these people my phone number to use as their payment, it doesn't work. I was out 200 and some change dollars. I'm on the phone almost cussing the lady out. Like, what are you talking about? I can't get my money. I was out money. So that's one thing you definitely need to make sure is whatever you sign up with, which one it is. Luckily, somebody happened to post the picture that they had bought from me. And I was like, hey, think you can resend that to this? And they did. So thank God I got some of my money back. But yeah, I won't do that again. But so Square has proven itself to be reliable to me all the time. I send my invoices, like when I do commissions and murals, whatever it may be, it's going through Square. I have PayPal, I have Venmo, I have Cash App, I have Quick Pay, I have Zelle, I have everything. If you got money, I can take it from you. But that's the one I stick with.
Yeah. Me too. Mike?
Well, I am so primitive on this subject. I wish I knew more about it. Like, when you say the Square, Lauren, is that the thing where you can just wave the card in front of the little device, or do you have to swipe anything?
Yeah. Square that actually would go into your phone jack and you would swipe it. Now it's a thing where you can kind of slide in the chip in from a credit card. So that's the Square has, but I think
it's both. You have to pay for that one.
Yeah.
That one, the touchless one is it costs money. The little one that plugs into the edge of your phone, that one it swipes right through. Usually when you sign up for it, it's free, or you can get it for like $10 over at Office Depot, whatever.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. I have recently gotten Venmo, and I actually kind of like that because it's so easy for someone else to use their phone to take a picture of your little weird square thing. And I also need to get a nicely made sign that has that image on it and put it on my table so people can just quickly do that. Although why that app lets people tell who they're spending money with, I'll never understand why you'd want to let other people know where you're spending your money. But still, the quickness of Venmo with that capture feature is nice. Business
side doesn't do that. When you create your business account on Venmo, you don't have to worry about, who spent with what and emoji.
Oh, well, I did have mine set to private, so they're not seeing where I spend my money. But these other youngsters who like to I don't know, I just don't get that. But anyway, I do like Venmo overall, though.
Now, do you guys find, I know I do on my side, do y'all find credit card sales are pretty much the norm now? I don't think, and especially with, again, price point. Back in the day, in the 90s, when we were selling prints for maybe 10 to 20 bucks, from
Yeah.
stuff that wasn't fine art prints, it was more like, hey, somebody went to Kinko's and got a color copy.
I remember those days.
It was cash sales for those, but when you have items, I think over $25, I want to say a lot of that is what you're seeing now. Because I think even when I have like a $3 sticker, I have somebody who wants to use a card.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need you to spend a little more to use that because of the fees on Square. So are y'all finding that it is more credit card sales than cash?
Yes, absolutely. I rarely get cash, though. Oddly, I did a show in a luxury apartment in their lobby not too long ago. And this young kid, he couldn't have been more than maybe 25, 26 years old. He looked around, saw what I wanted, and then, or saw what he wanted and said he'd be back. Now, we call those the be backs, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be back. But he drove away in his ginormous Porsche SUV and then came back in a Tesla SUV. And I said, there's a good chance he might actually spend the $1,200 for this painting. And he sure enough did. He picked up the painting and then in a print and came to like 13 something and gave me cash. And I'm just like, oh, I am so not comfortable with this much money in my hand right now. But generally, it's almost always going to be a credit card. And usually I'll cut people a discount, or I'll just take the tax off, I should say, if they pay in cash, because then I don't have to worry about the credit card fees.
Yeah.
But then it's so inconvenient because then I got to go to the bank, I got to deposit it, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just me.
Well, it's mostly credit card purchases, although that can depend on the venue also, like what show you attend for me. I know one thing, I've decided just recently that, I know a lot of times customers will say, hey, I can do cash or credit card. Which would you prefer? And usually I say, oh, whatever's good for you. I'm going to start saying cash would be nice, but if you'd like to pay with credit card, that's fine. Because I do prefer the cash, but I am going to start saying, well, if you can swing the cash, that's fine.
Yeah.
What about installment?
You want me to?
Let's see, Marvel.
Marlana, I have a couple. Let me go through the chat here. We have a couple things coming in on the chat here for Zoom. Marlana asked, okay, she says the Touch the Square reader is nice, but the phone jack one is free. I have both. I haven't used the Touchless one yet. Square overall has been good for her. And she's saying, Lauren, do you offer payment plans for your originals? And I'm thinking of offering installments through something like Klarna or Affirm. Curious if these online or for festivals. So do you do you offer payment plans? And I'll tell you what I do too.
Yes, I do. Not everybody's walking around with the amount of cash that I require for my work. And so I will, if I see somebody's on the fence, I will offer a payment plan. And usually what I'll do is they have to pay half up front, and then I'll work with them for the remaining balance. Usually it's be another 30 days because usually that's, another paycheck or so. And I've been fine with it so far.
And you let them take the artwork?
No.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering.
No. Usually the majority of those payment plans happen via online. I think I've only had maybe 1 or 2 in person, but I'll still set it up because I have all the Square apps on my phone. I'll set it up. I'll email it to them. Okay, here it is. And then they have to go through and do the down payment. And then when I get the money, that down payment is when I will remove the painting saying, okay, it's sold. But nobody gets anything until I'm paid.
Yes.
What I do because of that feature is PayPal credit, because you do take PayPal, and I have them signed up for PayPal credit, and I say, look, you got 6 months to pay it off, and with no interest fee after that. Now it is a high interest fee; it's like 29%. Like if you wanted to open up a store card, I mean, it's not a great interest rate, but 6 months, no interest, that gives them 6 months to pay it. I get paid immediately. And I still do think, especially weekends, it takes a little longer sometimes to go through and see everything. So ask them if they mind, let me take a picture of their driver's license. And I do PayPal credit. I usually look at their phone, says they were good for it, says it's sent. I see it on my side that, something's pending. And then I let them take the art, and we do it that way. And so far it has worked out pretty good. We haven't had anything where somebody canceled or anything. That at our art gallery in Austin, we started using it there because we were carrying so much art in the back when we would take it off the floor, because and you're doing it for 6 months, and then sometimes they would just fall off the grid. And it's like, well, what do you do with this? I mean, money. Part of our agreement plan is like, no money is returned if we can't get a hold of you within so many days and stuff. But just so I don't have to pay, work with the storage of that piece, make sure it doesn't get damaged while it's in storage. I found PayPal credit has worked really good with me, and I haven't had to deal with me taking a credit card and running it every month or every other week and doing all of that. I get paid immediately, and it's between PayPal credit and the customer to make those payments.
That's a really good idea. Square had something like that. They actually had Square financing. But I don't know what happened with that. They stopped doing it, I guess.
PayPal credit just seemed to dominate.
Oh, okay. Well, the only problem I would have though is I don't mind storing people's work because, I just added to my collection of stuff that's here. But when you send an invoice via Square for them to do a payment, you can set it up how often they make the payments. So like, for example, if I say for the $1,200 example, you pay half, okay, here's $600, you have to pay $600 is due immediately. And then for the remainder of that $600, or if there's tax added, you can break it up into milestones and you set the date when that milestone is due. So before my Dallas show, I ended up selling a piece to someone from Dallas before I even got there. Just happened to be this random Facebook person. So the painting was only $800, but he wanted to put $200 down, and he's been making steady payments on it. And I just, he goes in there himself. I do absolutely nothing. He's already got it. He just goes in there. He's got the invoice. When you're ready to pay it, you just go in there and you pay on it.
What is your pricing like at y'all's booth? I mean, I don't know if you're working with gallery representation too, Lauren, but
yes,
I know some artists have a thing where they, you don't undersell your gallery. You kind of keep it there, or you have a studio pricing. And then you have your online stuff where you're selling it online. So how do you come up with pricing for shows? Is it less than, or is it higher, or at the same?
So galleries are always going to be more because they're going to take their percentage. But my studio and a show are generally going to be the same, because usually when I'm talking to somebody at a booth, I'm probably going to be like, well, this is what I could take with me. But if you come to my studio, I have a lot more to choose from. And I'm trying to get them to my space because there's a lot more options there. And but I don't want to crank up the price because, again, my price point is kind of high anyway. So that's just what I've worked with.
And you might?
I try to keep, galleries are different, but at shows, I work really hard to make sure all my prices are pretty much exactly the same as the last show or the next show, because I don't want anyone to feel gypped or ripped off if they come to the next show and say, well, you were selling that for $10 less or $10 more last year or whatever. I want them to feel like, okay, that's a consistent pricing structure and I don't feel ripped off,
Every year my prices increase.
Yeah, that's different. That's a little different.
But simultaneously, like stuff that I've had for years and years and years, I also start to mark down. So like those prints that I was telling you that I've had since day one, I still keep those at the same price. But like originals, if something was like $1,400 to begin with, if I've had it for 5 or 6 years, that price has significantly dropped because I don't want it.
Have you packaged it before? Like this print, buy this print, and you get, this bundle of together.
Usually what I'll do with multiple print sales is it's buy two, save 10%, and then 3 is 20%, 4 is et cetera, et cetera. I had some smart aleck tell me, oh, if I bought 10 prints, are they free? I was like, yeah, no.
How about you, Mike? I think you have do you have a discount structure like that for multiple print sales?
Yes, I do. I do. And also like originals, I think Lauren mentioned that, there's a little bit of play, or maybe you did, most of a little bit of play in originals, depending, a little bit of play, but I still want everyone to feel like they're getting, a consistent deal. I do remember I was just sort of messing around with everyone one year, a couple years ago. I had an original, and I really liked it. It was framed. It was $320, and not a bit of interest was shown in this original at this 2-day show. And so I posted on Instagram. I said, okay, San Antonio, this was $320, but no one showed any interest in it. It's now $350. So if you want it, you better get it now, because it might be $380 next time. And I got no response to that. But still, I'm trying. You try things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that too. I always tell people these are my what do you call show prices, and especially if I'm working for an artist and I get the oh, I'm a friend of the artist, and I'm more like, thank God you're a friend of the artist. You're going to pay double the retail to show support.
Yeah.
And you've probably heard me say that a bazillion times with Tatum stuff. That's how do you guys? I would have. This is something I know everybody deals with at the booth. How much time do you guys spend per person? Because you have those people who want to come and they just want to talk to you the whole show through. Like they just want to be your groupie through that whole show. How do y'all determine how much time you're going to give somebody before you I call them the looky-loos kind of pass? And how do you determine who is a buyer and who is, just there to kind of chat you up? Not that they're bad, because fans kind of promote your stuff too, but how do y'all determine your time spent at the booth with potential buyers?
I treat everyone equally.
Mhm.
Everyone that walks into my booth is a potential sale. I don't necessarily like lunge on the person that's coming in. I'll just kind of let them come in and, peruse. And then if they stay in there for more than, the general come in, look around and walk out, then I'll speak to them. If they decide that they want to start talking my ear off, I'll entertain them as long as there's not anyone else that's trying to come in. If somebody else comes in, I'm going to acknowledge them immediately, because I don't want them to think that I'm so engrossed in this conversation over here with somebody who's essentially just wasting my time that I don't want your money. It's a terrible thing to say, but everybody that walks in is a big dollar sign to me. How much are you going to give me? So
Refreshing honesty.
Exactly. So, I love talking to people. That's one of the best things about doing these shows. What's even better is when they buy from you, and you don't know who it is. I pretty much know my demographic, but then there's times that people will completely surprise me. And I'm like, oh, cool. I wasn't expecting, like the little young fella that bought all of those big giant prints from me. From outwards appearance, he's maybe, like I said, 25, just a young kid straight out of college. He didn't look like anybody that was going to spend that kind of money. But he sure enough made me eat crow that day, and he spent a pretty penny. He didn't chat my ear off. I had some people that were there, and they did. And, I will, like I said, I'll shoot the shit with you all day long until somebody else comes along and I say, hey, don't hold on a second. Hey, how you doing? And let me talk to them too. And generally, if you acknowledge somebody else that's walking into your booth, the person that you were talking to will generally get the clue, like, okay, let me go ahead and move along.
Mike, you find the same way?
Yeah, I think what Lauren said is pretty true for me. If, depending on who's waiting, I mean, if it's a slow show, I'll talk for 4 hours with someone about William Shatner as Captain Kirk. I can do that. But if there are other people waiting, I try and wrap it up so I can get on and ask someone if I can help them, show them a t-shirt size or show them another print. But it's funny, people are just so different, because you might have a lady that will look at t-shirts, wants to see the small, wants to see the medium, wants to see the large, holds them up, spends 15 minutes, and then someone else will almost throw a $20 bill at you as they grab the top shirt off the stack so they can hurry up and leave, so it just depends on the personalities of the shoppers, I guess.
Yeah. On your last question, I think we're at the 8 o'clock hour, but we might go a little longer if whoever wants to stay on. What kind of questions do you guys get about prints? I think Lauren, I'm thinking you would get this must be having original paint canvases there. I know in some cases I have had to tell people these are Giclée prints, especially when they're hand embellished. They are not the originals. Do you find either of you that you have to explain media?
Yes.
Lauren?
So I'm also an art professor. So for me to shut off the teacher side is kind of hard. And I have to, curb my tongue sometimes because I'm just willing to go, full steam ahead with the whole explanation of everything. And I realize people's patience doesn't go that far. So I try to, they have those books, for dummies. And, I don't want to say that because I don't want anybody to be insulted, but essentially that's what I have to do. I have to dumb it down. This is a copy of that painting over here. And then generally they understand. So this is on the paper, so the ink's not going to fade. It's going to look the way it does today, 20 years from now, but it's still a copy. And then I say, there's more value in the original because you have the one that was actually touched by the artist. And so a lot of it is just education because people like art, but they don't know anything about art. So Mike, do you have to do a little bit of education while you're doing your thing?
I think so. Yeah. I generally describe not so much the media, but how I create the piece, because I digitally color the work that I do, but I hand draw a pen and ink drawing, black and white pen and ink drawing, so I have an original piece of artwork that I can hold in my hand. I color it digitally, and I usually end up explaining that process to people. They seem to be interested in that.
Yeah.
I think overall, just anytime somebody's in your booth, they're going to be interested in the process in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I use a palette knife and I use oil paint. So explaining my process to people, because the number one question I get is how long does it take you to make one painting? And so I have to tell them, I don't work on just one painting at one time. There's always 5 or 6 that are going. So, start here, go to here. And it's like an assembly line. And, I repeat this explanation, for the duration of me being out there. And most people just, they're interested, they lack that knowledge. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
James has got a follow-up question to that, so I'm going to let him go ahead and do that.
Well, it's actually not a question, it's more of a statement and relating to the prints. And I think this is important considering who we are at FinerWorks. But one of the things that I've talked to artists about and photographers as well is the importance of emphasizing or educating, like Lauren had mentioned, about the prints themselves, because that creates a certain sense of value. And because you don't want, and this is for not necessarily for Lauren and for Mike who have experience with this, but anyone that's starting, is it's important with your prints to emphasize and to place a certain tangibility, place a certain amount of value with those prints, so that they cease to become just a pretty picture on a piece of paper and instead become a work of art. And that's why I always suggest to artists and photographers, talk about the paper. I think Lauren said she uses the archival mat, or was that Mike that says use the archival mat paper?
that was me. Mm-hmm.
The properties of that paper. And we did a Zoom YouTube live session, maybe about, I think back in January or December, with one of our vendors, a paper company, where we talked about, well, it's not the most exciting topic in the world, but there's tidbits of information about that print, the inks, the paper, and what makes that print so important, what makes that print so special, because that, again, you want to create value, and you want your buyers to feel that they're getting a good deal if they're spending $20 for that 8x10 print. Mm-hmm. And you want them to cherish it and want to take it to their local frame shop and have that framed if it's not already in a frame. So I see a lot of importance in discussing the importance of that print, not just what it's made of, but what inspired it. Some of the same statements and information you give with your original work. Why did you, create that work in the first place? Really, package that print, even if it's just, someone quickly, buying an 8x10 print and that you're selling relatively inexpensively. If you can package it in their mind, then it goes a long way to placing value in that print, and they're more likely to want to come back and buy another one later on. So anyway, I just wanted to
Get that in there, yeah. Yeah, I agree, because I've sold Salvador Dali's, right? And it's just block printing stuff, and people have prints, but a Dali print is I mean, that's worth something. And I tell people, that these are legacy pieces. The paper and everything is archival. The inks are archival. These are something you can pass down a generation and still have really good piece. So yeah, informing everybody is great. And I guess we're here at the 8 hour. I'm going to get ready to kind of close it up. I want to thank Lauren for doing some. Mike, I want to thank you for jumping in last minute and being able to bring some expertise of the booth things. I think there's only a few things I had thought of to kind of share. I know people, when we talk about how do you find places, I know Zap application has been one site that I have liked. Entry Thingy also does some of this, like they kind of promote other shows that are going on. And we were mentioning earlier, Pancake and Booze. Again, demographic wise, this might be somebody who does more. You might have, it's going to be your lower end print kind of sales things. These are where like you want to do your $20 prints, and because you're kind of competing with alcohol here, so sometimes it's a party atmosphere. But they travel a lot, and I've met some artists, and I thought this was a great idea. It's kind of old school again, caravan artist things. There's a group of friends that go for the summer, and they follow a couple of the Pancakes and Booze shows to kind of make the money. And they kind of did an RV with a U-Haul, did some prints, some originals, and they hit a couple of the shows together and splitting the cost of the traveling, with the hotel and with the gas and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really smart thing to do if you're especially emerging artists coming out that have a younger fan base and they appeal to this kind of stuff. On here, Pancake and Booze might be something that you want to do and again, it's more of that fun thing, especially when you haven't found your niche yet. Little shows like this, because you go into these other cities and you get to talk to artists that are local and learn what shows are worth doing there, what kind of local scene they have for their art. So I have found some of that helps with people doing that. I'm trying to think really quick, what else do we have on here?
All Access.
All Access, yeah, they're another good one.
Cafe for Entry. Public Art.
And keep riddling those out, Lauren, because I'll put them up later on our YouTube for people to click on.
I was looking for the chat. I don't see the chat.
Yeah, if you don't have the chat on there, or just say them, and I'll find them and I'll add them into our YouTube, because the YouTube will be here available for playback. And so that's why we ask that you guys subscribe to the FinerWorks channel, because you have the playback option on there to see it, and you get notifications if you forget to watch this live, you can kind of watch it on the playback. Again, just a reminder on the, as I was saying, for Time Saver was having, if you don't want to do the thing, we actually do have the clear bags, the presentation mat kit here also. James, do those come sleeved? Depending on size, I think it's but the presentation mat, if you want those in there already done, especially if you're at the point where it's like that's one of the things that your luxury, you don't want to spend your time doing that. We have options to kind of set you guys up for doing all of your presentations.
I personally
myself. Okay.
The hinged mat presentation kits are good, but from the perspective of someone that that also does framing, where we do framing. I think just a matted print with a foam core backing is probably a better option, and you can order those in bulk from us. If you can order mats in bulk from us, or you could have your prints matted, in which case they would come with a foam core backing, which I think just is a little bit more substantial than those presentation kits. So those inside a clear plastic bag are great for booths. Easy to sell, feel substantial, I think.
Well, guys, that's what we have. We want to thank everybody. So Lauren and Mike, thank y'all so much. And if you guys have questions on this, if you want, I know here on the Zoom chat, Lauren has got some of the sites that she was just mentioning. So I'll put those up on our YouTube in the comment section, the description, so that you can go check those out. But we hope it helps you guys, and we hope you have like a really successful summer season selling your prints. And if you have questions, reach out to us either via the playback on the comments, or send us a message. You can do Melissa at FinerWorks.com, and I'll get the question to Lauren or Mike or James here, and we'll get you an answer. So we thank you again, guys. And thank you too for chiming in.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right, guys.
Thank
And
you.
so next month, we will have probably a behind the scenes. I think me and James are still trying to peg down what we want to do for the August month. I think we're going to look at maybe some behind the scenes here at FinerWorks to show you guys how some stuff is made, and that might be interesting because, again, that kind of gives you all more talking points at the booth when you want to talk about your media. Is there anything you want to close with, James?
And you want to? Yeah, I was. Are you muted? Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward that's probably what we're going to be doing, is some behind the scenes. We have a couple things coming up that we're working on. I guess you could say we're perfecting with some of the type of printing we're planning on offering, and that is related to textured prints, textured fine art prints, where we're actually printing texture. I think, did you post that on Facebook already? Well, we can kind of show people a little. I don't know if they can really see the texture, and what we have there is we actually have a canvas in which texture was printed, and you can see it on the left hand side, and then the image, or some of the image, we didn't print the whole image, but we wanted you to see the textured layer, but the image is then printed over the textured layer. So you'll be able to submit your painting like a digital file of your painting, and we'll be able to actually texturize it digitally and then print over that texture. So you actually have a fine art print that people can feel. So we're kind of perfecting that process, trying to figure out how to get that to work.
Would that be on canvas or would that be on paper?
I think.
Okay, sorry, Lauren.
Oh, okay. Would that be on canvas or would that be printed on paper?
This.
Melissa, you're muted. I don't know what you're saying.
Sorry, this is actually done on canvas, and it is mounted here. And what I love about this, and I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm trying to hold at the angle so y'all can capture that that's actually shadow from the image coming in right here. So it's like a groove. I can actually put my finger down into that. It gives, with the color here, I saw this when James showed it to me. I was like so amazed. People who like hand embellished prints, where it gives that texture feeling, because you can feel some of the acrylic. It really gives a lot of that feel, and I loved it. The appearance looks great. I'll put the video up on probably tomorrow so that y'all can get a nice close-up of this, but it is amazing. I'm loving it. I'm really excited about this coming out. So once we get this process perfected, we'll have it, trust me, all over our page so you guys can order it. And like I said, we'll get some things out for you guys to see these soon. But anything else, James? I mean,
We're having playing microphone tag here.
CD.
Yeah. No, that was it. But we're you know, we are looking forward to offering that. We understand the process, how to get the process down, but how to present it to our customers is you know, and make it affordable as well is my goal, because I don't want artists to have to, you know, spend everything that they would be making off of it just to do that. I want this is a process that you normally don't find, but I've been wanting to bring this process more mainstream, I guess you could say, so it can be something very lucrative for our users.
I'm interested.
Other than that, I think that's it. I want to personally thank Lauren and last minute, I guess, Mike to participate as well. Brandy Morgan was going to participate. Unfortunately, she had emergency dental surgery, so we missed her. And I've heard her speak before at one of the photo clubs that we sponsor here locally. So maybe in the future we'll have her speak, and because she always has some incredible insight. But yeah, Lauren, thank you so much, and again,
Sure.
Mike, you as well. And I'll turn it back over to Melissa to close us out.
Okay. Yeah, so with that closing, also next first Thursday, because we forgot to mention it on Photo Tips Monthly, is going to be something that applies even to artists, and it is finding your niche. So that group, that and it's something you got to know, as Lauren has said, that finding her demographic has helped her print sales hugely. So those are some great stuff that we have for next month in August. Subscribe and hit the notify button on the YouTube channel. That way you guys know, that way when these are coming out, and always look out for your FinerWorks newsletter. James mentions them in there, and he also has great blogs on selling tips and about our products, so that you have all of that information. So again, thanks again, guys, and we'll see y'all next month.
Bye.